Hey, Magnus. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Doing more work. You look at the map, you can see I added a designation. I'm calling it the Low River. I don't know. I don't have any reason. Franchise. Magnus is a bit behind this franchise. Can you start here? Should you watch the first four? I mean, things will make more sense, I guess, if you watch the first four, but you know, it's not going to maybe you'll be a little slightly less confused. I'm not sure. So right now, working on the hex crawl, portion of this bad boy, which is not meant to be super engrossing. I'm not asking anybody to trek super long distances. These are 3 mile hexes. Um, these are rougher terrain. Basically, everything's kind of rougher terrain. But here, this is kind of nice and clean. Everything else pretty rough. I suppose I could put a general thing. I was thinking about having different movement rates, but actually, I could probably general outside of. I don't have the name of the town, so I'm just going to call it Hex B. Outside of Hex general. Let's see. Move rate of movement across the wilderness is 1 hex per expedition turn. The exception is hex B, which can be crossed. I guess it doesn't even really matter. I was saying because basically hex B is kind of free, open, clear terrain. So that one can be crossed. Two of those hexes could be crossed in one turn. However, um, the in this case, maybe I'll put a general rule in there because just to set folks up for later. In this case, there's only one of them, so it almost doesn't really make a difference because I'd rather for this kind of adventure, given that trying to make it kind of new GM friendly or at least kind of simplified. I'm not interested in like, well, if you cross that in half an expedition turn, then like, what does the math look like? Like this is, I think we talked about this in terms of dungeon turns. I think this is where people can get in all kinds of trouble. Just not that logic fails, but a little bit of that the gamey parts, those mechanics, those gears that are turning, and then you're trying to make it fit with the kind of fictional time, and just ends up gumming things up, and not for any real. There's no good outcome. I don't think that trying to figure out fractional this or that is actually helpful. Certainly, I think it frustrates people, makes it tougher to run the game. I don't think in the fiction they're not aware of these fractional times anyway. It doesn't really matter, right? Ultimately, like I've said, ultimately the amount of time all this stuff takes can be kind of loose because no one's got stopwatches, no one's got these things. Oh, it's the no one's walking around with with their mobile sundials, so you don't really need to worry about that. But mechanically, you want to keep it up. So in this case, if this were part of a larger hex crawl area, the clear hexes would be you could cross two of them in one expedition turn. However, there's only one of them here, and everything else is basically kind of a rougher terrain. So I'm not going to worry about it, and I'm just going to say one thing: what are we working on today? Haha! Let us begin. Oh, very nice with the nice pun work. So I think, yeah. All right. Only I can make this more nice. In general, player characters can move across the wilderness at a rate of, and then we'll just make that 1 hex per expedition turn. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. Um, and I could probably put in like an author's note saying, really, you can move quicker across hex B, but since that's their destination, not going to be worrying about it. Not going to be worrying about that. And this is just in my PAX Unplugged little thing here. Just cool icy water for the working man. I don't know about where you are. Super nice weather. Though it's supposed to rain this evening, at least that's what the Amazon devices told me. Though I don't know about you. Sometimes I check the weather on the Amazon device, and it comes up oddly, fairly different than say what Apple's weather gives me, and I haven't really been able to sync them up. They must just. I don't know if they use different algorithms or if because we're not getting all the detail. When you ask the Amazon device for the weather, it gives just a very basic, well, not super basic, because it'll tell you things like, oh, it's gonna, it'll rain. Though it's weird, it'll say something like it's gonna rain, and 2 o'clock. Like what'll happen is it'll say like, the weather for today is partly sunny and thunderstorms. And I'll say, okay, then it gives the high and the low, and I'll say, oh, great. So what time's it gonna rain? It's gonna rain at 4 o'clock, and it could, possible rain is possible at 4 p.m. and again at 6 p.m. with a total precipitation of 0.02 inches. I'm like, that's great, that's cool, right? All right, I like that. But then I'll go look at the other weather app, and the chance of rain in those hours is like 10%. So it's like, okay, the Amazon device is telling me, making it sound at least that rain is inevitable, with maybe a couple of caveats, but mostly like it's going to rain and it's going to rain a lot. Then the other device is telling me, well, there's like a 10% chance of rain. And then given that you put a couple of 10% chance of rains together, and you get ultimately you get like a 60% chance of rain if enough, you get enough hours at whatever percentage, and you wrap it all up for the day, you get 60%. But it's just, I don't know if anyone else has noticed that as they're working with all these devices and such. Oh, Brian, I didn't know. I keep forgetting you're in Michigan, or either I forget, or maybe you don't mention it. But cool, it's a place I've never really been through in the Michigans. Brian says they always cross-reference their weather app with some radio weather, maybe TV. Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you're, are you? I don't know, Western Michigan. So are you not near the lakes? Because definitely when there's bodies of water around, like when I'm in Studio B, that is something that comes up. And I suppose, just to put it kind of game terms, it would be interesting maybe if it didn't create a lot of work to factor that into weather, but having all these little bodies of water around does produce, so where the Studio B is, it's not the Great Lakes, but there are lots of hills, valleys, and smaller bodies of water. Small bodies of water, but there's a fair bit of them between wetlands and small lakes and ponds and whatnot, and streams, and a couple of large, not major rivers by any means, but just kind of rivers. There's a lot of water around, and it was only lately, well, not lately. It was only recently that I heard it on the weather report up there. Something about like the lake effect. I never had thought that lake effect. I always thought lake effect is Buffalo or right on Lake Michigan, like Brian is, something like that. But apparently, it's in effect up there. Um, so anyway, back to this stuff. Trying to keep it kind of simple. So I'm not going to worry about the fact that this clear terrain, yes, you would move more quickly through it. No, I don't care, because this is the only, this ends up being the only piece of terrain in which that applies. Everything else is essentially difficult, or at least more difficult terrain. Um, Brian Smith says, Lake Effect is a word we learn as children, mostly when Lake Effect snow shuts down schools. Yes, Buffalo is where I see that mostly, where you see those things, 8 feet, 10 feet of snow, just crazy stuff coming off the lake. But yeah, I had always thought the lake effect really applied to around the Great Lakes regions, and then presumably other kind of regions with really big lakes, but apparently it applies to areas just with a bunch of water. And maybe not even a bunch. I don't know. I don't really know. Like I said, I'm new to the fact that the lake effect is something that is applicable to not huge bodies of water. So I guess they call it the lake effect and not the ocean effect. So there is that. All right. In general, player characters can move across the wilderness at a rate of one hex per expedition per turn. Okay. Now I do want to put a note in here. An escarpment divides the heights, that is hexes A, C, and F, from the low river valley. Maybe I'll just call it the low valley. That low valley, which is, and I'm just going to write the hexes in here because why not? It's B, D, E, and G. This is B, D, E, and G. Moving up or down the escarpment. Actually, let me say a little bit more about it. Do I need it? What's another word for escarpment? Oh, let's see. Oh, I feel a sneeze coming on. Excuse me. Okay. Merriam-Webster. Merriam-Webster says cliff. Oh, look at that. The castle sits atop an escarpment. Yes. Cliff, palisade, bluff, precipice, embankment, bulwark, declivity. I don't know what that's. Crag. I don't think so. Cliff, maybe cliff, palisade. We use palisades. I don't really hear that talked about that much with the term palisade for this. You may think of it more as palisade as in a wall. It's funny because in New York, New Jersey, or here in the city, when you look across, there's something called the Palisades, which are basically these cliffs on the other side. It crosses over between New Jersey as part of it, and then New York has part of it. But there's basically on one side of the Hudson, there are these decently high cliffs at the kind of the side of the river. On the other side of the other side from me, I guess I should say, on the west side of the river, there are, and they call it the Palisades. There's a Palisade Parkway, whatever. But it doesn't seem like a term that gets used for that. Maybe it's just because I'm so ingrained in medieval fantasy stuff, where we just hear Palisade and you're like, yeah, it's the wooden wall. It's like, no, that can also be just that. But I guess I'll use the cliff. The cliff is steep and rocky with many sheer stony surfaces camouflaged by um, let's see, growth of trees and brush that found foothold to grow. I'm using growth and grow. Let's see, escarpment divides, and I'll bold escarpment. I don't know why I do know why. I always think about, don't worry about a lot of the formatting stuff because I'm going to essentially unformat and have to reformat it later. But then this formatting it now does give me the put in my mind how I want to format it, even if I end up having to do it again later. All right, so an escarpment divides the heights, and this is this line right here. That's the escarpment. Let's see. Escarpment divides the heights, hexes right there from the low valley. Okay, the cliff is steep and rocky. Maybe I say the ridge line. No, the cliff. The cliff is steep and rocky with many sheer, stony surfaces camouflaged by growth of trees and brush that found footholds. Do I need a? Do I need a Guess I need a synonym for grow. Promote, produce. No, not as in to cultivate, to develop, evolve, bloom, progress. Ugh. I may need it. What's a synonym for growth? Stand. I'll use stand. All right. Clumps, stands, maybe clumps. Clumps of trees and brush that found footholds to grow. Moving up and down the escarpment. Okay, there we go. There is a trail that provides relatively safe passage down the escarpment. Moving up or down. Oh, cops. Oh, thanks. Yep. And not the clumps as in Christmas with the clumps. Certainly not. Cops is what also been good. There's the trail that provides relatively safe passage down the escarpment. Moving up or down the escarpment off trail, I guess, if the party attempts to move up or down the escarpment off trail, we're going to roll 1d6. Roll 1d6, rolling twice and taking the higher result if tools or applicable skills, abilities, or spells are used. Bless you, Bruce. My cat is sneezing in the background. Gotta get you some more medicine, Bruce, and you're sneezing on my book. I don't really want cat snot on my books. Okay, Bruce, can you try to cool it? Good old copses, indeed. Okay, now we got a 1d6. Insert a little table here. Table. I don't know if I need. Well, let's see. I'll just do a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I need 2, I think. He's allergic to human dander. I would not doubt it, if I were quite honest. Let's see. What did we do? Do that one? Yeah, we did that. We can roll that back there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so let's bring up. Oh, I'm going to bring up any dice again. Oh, it's going to bring up my saved thing, isn't it? It is. Okay. So I was doing this stuff. This stuff is not for this, but what I'm looking for is output 1d6, output, right? Highest one, I think one of 2d6. I did that right. Why are you doing that? I can't bring you up. Okay. Maybe I'll make a note. I'm going to move this because I actually want to have 2 notes. Oops. You're going to make me do that. I hate something that really bugs me with these things is when, I don't know, Word, I feel like does this. It's trying to be helpful, but it does things like it wants to highlight more of your text than you want it to. And it's just, I just want it to highlight what I highlighted. I don't want it to be helpful. If the party uses, I can make this a little bit more readable. Applicable tools, skills, or spells. Roll 2d6. Take the higher results. I wonder if I should put it. Now, here's the thing. Here's a question for you. If so, I'm playing this table of what happens when you try to. What happens if you are coming down this escarpment? Now, it's going to be something of success, and success and cost, that kind of thing, right? Okay. Um, what? Well, let me see if I can phrase this correctly. And keep in mind that I'm coming at this from, I'm shading things towards newer folks. Not. I'm not trying to make it necessarily the teaching adventure, but I'm trying to shade it towards, okay, what do I feel like new GMs, new referees would need, as opposed to hardened veterans like the rest of us. Part of me wanted to have more things here. Well, one, I could just say, um, I'm putting this thing in about using spells and skills, right? I could do that in different ways. I'm just using advantage, and I might actually have to change it. Thinking about it, because I might need to have well, I don't know. We'll see. Because I like advantage and disadvantage, right? The whole issue with it, or it's not an issue really, but the whole thing is, it's a really nice system, I think. But it does a couple of things. You can only have advantage or disadvantage. I wouldn't. I mean, I suppose you don't have to. You could have modifiers and advantage and disadvantage, and disadvantage, and certainly that happens in 5th edition. You roll an attack roll, you have advantage on your attack, you still add your modifiers. For something like this, I would rather, if I'm going to use modifiers, I'll just use modifiers. If I'm going to use advantage or disadvantage, I'll just use that. Now, in 5th edition, the 5th edition version of advantage disadvantage, you can only have one or the other. They cancel each other out, and you can only have one. So once you do something, in our case, I've got rope, and I can tie it around a boulder at the top, and we can shimmy down that way. Great. If someone else says, I also have climbing tools, like I've got, I don't know, crampons and things like that, it doesn't add anymore. It's just that you had advantage, right? That's it. And so there's what you're getting in the simplicity of running advantage. You lose a little bit in some of that granularity, because as a player, it can feel like it just doesn't matter. It's like first person to yell out something wins, right? I got crampons. Okay, you get your advantage. Wait a minute, I have rope. It doesn't really matter if that guy's already got advantage, right? In terms of the roll. Maybe it make a ton of difference in other contexts, but just in terms of getting her done, get her done. It doesn't matter. And then the flip side of that is, when you're in one of these things here, it's very easy to fall into, and I don't even want to say I call it a trap, because I think there's value in it. I think a lot of times folks will read something and they come at this is one of the interesting thing. I think people, let me go on a little bit of a tangent here. I guess maybe or maybe not. We'll see. We get there. When you read reviews of different products in the OSR space, people will just fall in love with things. I've fallen in love with things I've read, right? Other people will, they'll fall in love. And then someone else will come from the outside and look at it and say, hey, wait a minute. If you peel back your institutional knowledge of the OSR, so to speak, and then read this thing again, if you can do that, if you can pretend, or you can hand this book off to someone and say, make sense of this without having all the background information, then the thing falls apart because they don't explain anything. I mean, it's kind of a little bit, not exactly the same, but the thing with OSC, right, is it gives you this summary and very concise, really just encyclopedia of the rules, but doesn't give you all the teaching context. And I think that's what some of the people who are against Cairn and some other systems and products like Cairn will look at and say, listen, you think it's wonderful because you read it with all this context that's in your brain, and you apply it to something that really it's not there, right? You're looking at just some squiggly lines, but because you know all this other stuff, you fill it in, and so you see this complete picture. But if you were to take someone and they didn't have that context, then they would look at it and say, "What the f is this? It's just a bunch of squiggly lines. It doesn't make a coherent whole." Hey, RPG Grandma. Um, right. So I'm curious where you guys come in on that. I am not someone who minds someone spending a few moments to spell things out or give me some options. I don't necessarily need every iteration spelled out, but I think sometimes, and particularly when something is either can be very fraught or it's something that can be kind of important to the proceedings, to give me a little clue about, hey, what is the author's expectation here, right? And so here in this instance, I have put this feature on the map, this escarpment. And so whereas I could just leave it blank and say, hey, you as a GM decide what happens when you're trying to move up and down that escarpment. And I think for a lot of people that would be valid. A lot of people will say, I don't need any of that stuff, right? I just roll 1d6, we'll figure it out. On the other hand, I think for other folks, and this is kind of who my audience I'm anticipating are, who may not have all the knowledge having done this stuff, would say it would be kind of nice if you have this major feature here and it's kind of a plot point, this obstacle to get down, that you give me an idea of what your expectation is for this, because I might run it in my head and it's like a death trap. It is. Get around to playtesting this, and someone might want to know, hey, when you ran this and someone fell trying to climb the escarpment, what did you do for that? Right? Did you just kill them? It's a 30-foot drop, 40-foot drop, 4d6 roll kind of thing, or that. Brian says, I think there's room for both. Can't always have everything aimed for complete beginners. Ideal is stuff across the spectrum, so any level of expertise says something. Depends on the intended reader. Yes, no, I agree with that, but I think that, I guess, where that line is for you. I mean, this is something I don't have an answer with. It really is a question. I myself, I always feel like if you give me a little bit more and I don't like what you're giving me, I can always overrule it myself. This will come up. Oh, so-and-so, like, they drink this thing and something happens. And I look at it and go, whoa, that seems to be either not enough for what they're doing or too much or whatever. And I can adjust it back. But I think it's harder for someone who is not experienced or doesn't have a strong idea of what they want, whether they're experienced or not, to fill in. I think it's easier to say, here's the thing and I don't like it and start my own thing, than here's nothing at all and I gotta kind of fill it in. Because I could see in some ways, if I don't mention it at all, maybe people will just go across, which wouldn't be the worst thing. But it's just one of those things that I intend this to be a bit of an obstacle. Therefore, I feel it incumbent upon me to write a bit about the obstacle so that people appreciate it, whether they decide to handle it using a little table or whether they decide to do something else. Right. But yeah, I'm interested in, and I don't really have an answer for kind of, hey, where's the sweet spot? And as Brian Smith says, there might not be one, because there are different audiences, people who are new, people with new players, people who are experienced, people with experienced players, and who's getting it and for what, and of course everywhere in between, different shades thereof. So Brian says they love DCC because when they detail things are very unique and weird, and normal things are pretty easy to slide past. I see. Well, this is not something, unfortunately, this is not anything weird. Yeah, I don't know I don't know what would really be weird in this context. This is the other thing. And kind of by design, I'm not this is not I don't anticipate this is not really designed to be particularly weird. This is not a Sailors on the Starless Sea kind of adventure. In some ways, and I'm certainly not the only one to think about this. There's a little bit of I want to kind of take just have some kind of normal vanilla stuff, because I think that there's so much, oftentimes people fall in love with the really weird stuff, which is great, but it can be a lot to manage for a new person, and not everybody's. I feel like sometimes the sensibilities are just like, my sensibilities just aren't the same as theirs, and so I kind of bounce off some stuff because, like, oh, this I'm not really trying to do that. I just kind of wanted, because I think partly too with some of these things, and I think that's where the where maybe people who enjoy, and I've seen people talk about this a little bit, but maybe not in an organized way. People enjoy some of the this is where I had that whole thing about 10-foot pole and their reviews, and just interesting way different people see things was in what Tales from the North, or is that what it was? Tales from the North, man. Tales from the North, I think. And also, he also did that was also Valley of the Manticore, which I haven't read, and In the Shadow of Tower Silveraxe. And these adventures are very kind of they have some little elements on the fringes, but they're very sort of vanilla and kind of plain, if you will. They don't have, other than some of the backstories around some of the creatures, which are really kind of in the background. So they don't impact much at all for the most part. They're very kind of vanilla and very, in a way, flat. But you could look at that flat. Well, I say, but you can look at that flatness, that vanillaness, and say it's a problem. You should be giving me something with more flavor. I think that was kind of the 10-foot pole argument. Hey, you should be giving something with a lot more flavor. That's what I'm paying for. I could do flat vanilla something myself. And of course, that's absolutely correct. However, sometimes what I think that you're kind of delivering is this canvas. And a canvas, or a playground, if you want to use a different terminology, or a beach with sand and some kind of objects in the sand. And the idea is that you're giving this canvas, and to the point of, well, look, I could do that myself. Yeah, I mean, everyone's good at doing different things themselves. But I think that different people are good at different things, and not everybody's good at making the canvas. Not everybody's good at doing that setup. What I think a lot of people actually, it's that first bit of help that they need. That first, like, just give me a map with something on it, and then I can go fill in. But that blank page syndrome or whatnot just gives me problems. Or the fact that if I see a blank page full of hexes, I want to fill it in. Like, all that, right? Those are all things that can cause people a lot of consternation when they're prepping or trying to run a game. Whereas you give them this sandbox, this canvas, this maybe not flavorful thing, but it's also this thing that you can build upon. It's like, here's chicken. It's like, well, chicken by itself, maybe you love it, maybe you don't, but usually chicken's a great carrier for other flavors. Or shrimp is another one. Not a whole lot of flavor in your average shrimp, but shrimp is a great carrier for other flavors, for things to add on. And someone remarked, I think it might have been in talking about In the Shadow of Tower Silveraxe, that what they appreciated about it was that it gave them this canvas upon which they could take these elements of the story that were given and then sort of paint on top of it. And obviously, mine's just a little tiny thing, but that's kind of what I'm hoping to sort of do here, is that you finish this off. There'll be some kind of, hopefully, some next steps you can take. And then you can start, if you want to go into it, you can get kind of really into it. But that I'm giving you kind of a primed canvas, all right? It's like you go to the store and you got your kit, get some colors, get a couple of paintbrushes, and you get this primed, and the canvas has already been stretched and it's been pre-treated, and it's tacked onto the board, so it has a nice firm thing, right? And it's all ready to paint. There's a few elements on there that are in pencil that you can kind of do that, and then after that, you have the rest of the once you do this little painted piece, and then you can add on to it your arts. That's kind of what I'm thinking about, which is certainly different, I think, than DCC. But like I said, I really enjoy a lot of the DCC stuff. Though DCC has just kind of a whole different feel. I know people play DCC kind of multiple modules adventures, but they almost feel, to me, the ones I've read anyway, just feel so good as just kind of like you just do the thing and then you're kind of done with that. It almost feels more like a classic sword and sorcery short story where Conan goes in, something happens, and I'm not really looking. I guess that's maybe how they do it anyway, just kind of very modular, very much. You finish the story, and then sometime later you're off doing something else. I don't know that you know, I guess in the kind of the ye old campaign style, do a bunch of DCCs. I almost would prefer to treat them like short stories, but I haven't really played that much of it. So Brian asks, what would a paint by numbers adventure be in this analogy? Whew. Well, I think kind of a sandboxy kind of thing would be. I mean, this is not even really that because I'm almost like you come out of this and you'll have this little sandbox, tiny little sandbox to play in, at least for maybe a couple other sessions, maybe not, depending on what happens. Um, you know, but I would say kind of you're like setting up your sandbox because obviously it's not going to be an adventure path because adventure path is already pre-painted. You don't get any, and maybe the paint by numbers in that case isn't a good analogy because the paint by numbers you're supposed to put in the paints that they give you. You know, number 6 is it's Van Dyke Brown or whatever, and you paint that in. Number 7 is red ochre, and you paint that number. Maybe that's not even quite the right analogy because that would seem more kind of adventure pathy, where you're sort of supposed to paint with the paints they give you in between the lines that they give you in the prompts that they give you. Maybe it's more like where you get the thing and you get the starter paint set, and it's only got these 8 colors, but you could take those 8 colors and put them wherever the heck you want. RPG Grandma says they can work with detail or just a skeleton. Yeah, I find, I think the thing is with the details, which is kind of key, and which I think is what OSC has done so well, or the necrotic gnome models done so well, is for the most part they've done a really good job at coming up with a layout style that highlights those details to make it easy to see. I can say though, I did find in running Hole in the Oak, though, with such little prep, so it's not like I could say like this is a, this is an absolute statement about it. But I think I did miss a little bit. I'm trying to think of what would I call it? One thing I like, or that I realized, or at least I think I realized, because I'd probably need to do more of it, because maybe I would get used to it. But one thing I think I realized is that the layout, I found that looking kind of in the fly, in the moment, going to a spot and looking at the page, I did find it maybe a little bit difficult to look at the thing that is the most important part of the room. Like there's a little bit where my eye is scattered amongst all the bullet points and things, and I'm trying to decide like what is the thing I really need to know first. And I will say that that is something that the boxed text actually does well. Is the box text, when you get to the room, you see the box text, you know exactly where you need to go first. I wonder if incorporating something like that, where it's not necessarily box text and that here's the thing that you read, but the box text and that here are the things you absolutely must read first. Like you got to know these first. There might be other details, but these are the things you need to know first. Because I think with the bulleted thing, now granted, you've got like if you read, I'm sure that if you read top down, the most important stuff at the top and the least important stuff at the bottom, I'm sure that's true. Though, depending on the context of the situation, what you as the author might find to be the most important. I guess that's true with box text too. You got to make a choice of what's most important, what's least important, right? And some stuff's going to go in the box text, some stuff's not going to go in the box text. So maybe it doesn't really matter. But I did find that I had a little bit like, where should I be focusing my eyeballs? And I thought, maybe that's something that box text actually does. Maybe that's something that having something boxed just to draw your eye and say, hey, when you get to room 32, this piece of information, whatever it is, that is the most important. This is what you need to know first. Everything else is kind of equal value. But I did find myself struggle with that slightly. But that could also just be the fact that I don't read them enough and use them enough and run them enough. And that if I actually was running through that whole adventure however long it would take, a couple of weeks of sessions, that part would fall away. I don't really have anything to say about that. I'm just kind of say it as an observation. At the back to the thing in hand, if you're moving up and down this escarpment and you're off trail, so one is that you climb. I'm just going to put some shorthand in. Hey, successful climb. Successful climb. but roll for a wandering creature at destination. A successful climb, but there's been a minor injury. Must rest for the next expedition turn or move at half speed. So that would be 1 hex per 2. Okay. So we got here are our sort of successes. One, hey, successful climb. Successful climb, but roll for wandering creature at the destination. Successful climb, but there's been a minor injury. And injury here, I'm just using because I might have something where it's someone's been hurt. I'm not sure whether I want to do hurt or not. And in other words, I'm not sure if I want to do actual hit point damage for this. Just again, keeping it. Now, this is not falling. Like I'm assuming that because of the way these things are, that someone's not taking a header. I suppose on a 1, that would be save. Each player character must save or take. Oh, let's see. We were averaging, maybe these are, I don't know how high I would say these things are, but we'll just say 3d6. That's, 3d6 is going to be enough. Save versus death, maybe? See, this is where I go back and forth on. So here's where things like advantage, disadvantage, not that they become important, but they hold on a minute. What am I looking for? I'm looking for, here we go. So this is kind of what I was going to look at. So here you've got, let me do one more. So we have output, and we got output 1d6 plus 1. Okay. Calculate. Okay. So let's look at these 3. We're looking at these 3 down here. This is just your flat d6. 16 and change, 16 and a half, more or less, chance of any particular thing happening, from your greatest success, your greatest failure, even Steven. Right? This one here, now we've added 1. Now what happens is, with adding 1 to the roll, we can now get to 7, which I don't need, but it would be theoretically, it could be there, but now 1 is off the board. Right? So whatever this catastrophe is, where everyone is save versus death or take a bunch of damage, that's now off the board. Hey, Mark, welcome. What programs am I using? All right, yeah, sure. This is just a Word document. This is just Chrome. This, which I'm assuming is what you're talking about, it's Affinity Designer. And I'll zoom up so you can see the. Well, let's see. Hold on a minute. You can see it in its glory, since I haven't. There we go. Woo! Zoom out here. Okay. Affinity Designer is just it's a vector. I can do more than vectors. It's an art program. It's a general digital art application. Desktop, it's by this company called Affinity. They have a whole suite. They are competitors with Adobe. It's basically a professional graphic suite. It is not uh, a dedicated hex drawing app or dungeon drawing app. And the symbols that you've seen here, I just drew up myself. So, and it's actually not terribly difficult. And I went down this path because eventually I'm going to put this in I'm going to publish this when it's finished. And so the problem came up. First, I was looking for I did look around and say, what can I mock up originally a dungeon map? When I started this dungeon part of it, like, what can I mock up for the dungeon map? And I got some great suggestions. The problem with them is it can get kind of hairy when you look at your which ones are there's free ones, obviously, then there's some of them they've kind of gone subscription model. And in the subscription model, I was looking at Dungeon Scrawl, which is now part of D20, and you have to be on the subscription model if you want to essentially be able to use for commercial purposes. So that kind of was out right there. And then plus they had some things that even, depending on what graphic packs you used, whatever. So I kind of looked at some, and none of them were really suitable for the dungeon element. So I just said, I'm just going to draw it myself, and I'm using very old schooly symbols. So I don't need to draw anything complicated. All these symbols are all fairly easy to do. I'm not a great thing. And then I just made these, when I got to the hex map portion, I just made some hexes and just kind of drew some simple things over it. But yeah, I like the look of it. It is a very simple style, but I think it transmits the information it needs to transmit. And it's doable. I think it's really doable. And once you kind of get the hang of a little bit of just kind of intro to doing vectors, which itself can be a little bit tricky, and I don't pretend to be an expert in that either, but once you kind of get the feel for that a bit, then you really can just kind of whip some things out there. It's like, oh, it's pretty good. Obviously, it's missing a lot of the quality of life stuff for a dedicated piece of a dungeon app, but at the same time, this software is much more powerful than what you're going to get out of a dungeon or dungeon drawing app. It is pay, so I did pay for Affinity, but unlike Adobe, it's not subscription. It's a one-time payment, and if you intend to do stuff on kind of a, I don't know, pseudo professional basis, I definitely recommend it because they're very good, and you don't, once you have it, you're free and clear. So you just got to kind of invest in it once, and you're done. All right, so we got our catastrophe. So, so I was going back, so to get back where it was, if we look at the any dice, we can see here the difference. Adding 1, so we go from our flat D6, which basically has even odds on anything. Any particular thing happening on any particular roll, same odds. This is the same as the D20. Now, you can add, if you break these up into groups and you say, oh, if they roll 2, 3, 4, or they roll 5, 6, they roll 1, you can add some, you can shape the odds that way. But just by default, right, each face of the D6, same percent chance. That's what that's showing you. If you add a flat modifier to the roll, now we get, this is a D6 plus 1. So now, okay, we can reach 7, which again, for my purposes, I don't care. But might be in some other purposes might be good. But now 1 is off the table. Advantage is interesting because what it's done is basically shifted the odds, but there is still that chance of that catastrophe. It's made it a lot less likely. You've gone from 16% and change down to 2, a little bit less than 3%, let's say. So, and you're more likely to get a 6. If we add these two together, you'd have a little bit more chance of getting a 6 and a 7 than that, but certainly on a 5, you're more likely here to get a 5 than you are on the other one. And a 4. So it's just interesting ways to look at it. It's good to think about it anyway, because what those systems kind of do. on the one hand, if you add a flat modifier, you are literally, for good and bad. In some cases, it might be good. In some cases, you might say, hey, if they have tools, then yes, I'm saying that if you have a tool, you could avoid that catastrophic damage because you have the rope. You avoid it. It's not even possible. And we could talk about, do we want to modify this more by saying, well, what if you're climbing at night, right? Okay, whatever, right? Oh, that's it. On the other hand, someone else might say, I don't like it because people climb with ropes all the time in our lives, and people fall even though they have ropes and crampons and all this stuff. And then still, people who do rock climbing, people who are trained to do rock climbing, fall, hurt themselves, die, unfortunately, all too often. So taking it off the board, I don't want to do that. What I like about the advantage, disadvantage is that you get that full thing. You still have the full range of your dice, but the odds have just gotten significantly decreased, but it's still there. Now, in terms of a game, there's that other element of, is it fun? Is it fun to have done everything right and then you just roll cruddy and you lose? And the answer is probably not, but that's also as part of the game. People have really poor runs of luck, or they happen to be at target of very extreme great runs of luck, and it just it happens, and it happens, right? So I don't know. I haven't made a decision yet for myself whether I should just, which one is better. I think at the moment I'm leaning towards advantage, disadvantage, or advantage in this case for having tools. You could have both. If you could have, I don't know. I don't know if there's a way to. Well, yeah, you could. Like if I wanted to say, that's lowest, highest. Let's see. Actually, I'm not sure. I might have to do it another way. I was gonna say, could I do like 1d6 minus 1, then best of those? I'm not sure I could. Or could I do it this way? Let me see. Is this gonna give me an error? Nope, it didn't. What did it give me? It did. It shifted it. Okay. So like I was thinking, if you wanted to have it roll at night, you could put a -1 on there. Though I think that probably wouldn't. I don't think I want to do that. I'm not sure how I want to do it. Or even if I want to cover it all. But that's the other thing, right? The other thing that at least I'm trying to keep in mind is whatever system I put in here, presumably someone's going to want to modify it, and can they get the results they do? So in this case, you're climbing with a tool, you can you can take advantage. But I think that it could come up depending on what happens. Like, what if you're coming at night? How do you then modify that for night? And I don't have that far yet. Maybe this isn't the right. Maybe a D6 isn't enough to do that. Maybe I got to go to a 2d6. I don't know. I'm just gonna put things so stuck. At the Let's bold some of these up. Um, let's see. I don't know what I want to call that. I need to mess around with these. I don't really, the other thing too is, I'm not trying to make it super punishing. It's really not my goal either. I want it to be challenging. So I guess here's what I'm thinking, right? You have multiple options. This escarpment is this line here. They're starting off on the high side of the escarpment. So theoretically, they ought to be climbing down. Maybe an extended play, once they kind of finish the scenario and they're staying in this area, they might well want to climb back up. But presumably they're going to be climbing down. And so the challenge part of it is, okay, so you have this obstacle here. It's the easy way. If we want to say, like, what is the easy way, right? What is it if we're going to look at it and say, what's the front door kind of thing? The front door approach would be, once they get out of this fort, presuming they do, there's a trail that would be, especially from the fort, will be easy to follow. That will take you. It will take you down. It'll take you through here, which is actually a safe way to get down, and it'll take you all the way there. Follow it down there. But there's going to be cultists and things happening on this trail, so there are a number of reasons why that's not necessarily a great idea. Though they may not know it. They may not, depending on what information they have, they end up leaving the fort with. They may not know that stuff. But it's definitely an easy way because you don't have to worry about the navigational parts. Follow the trail, follow the yellow brick road. But it's got those dangers. Now we have, well, that's okay. We'll just cut across the wilderness. Easy peasy, easy as pie. Well, maybe not, because down here in the wilderness, not only do you have whatever monsters, creatures you might encounter, but now you got this escarpment. And so I don't want it to be just a simple, okay, we just go, we go across the country that way. I want it to be a meaningful choice between, and not only is it just, do you take the trail, but maybe you want to shade the trail. Can we be close enough? There are a lot of ways you can kind of try to dog it. Do we want to go walk along the escarpment and then see if we can find a spot to go down easily, which they could do. They could leave the fort, come here and say, oh, that looks dodgy, and maybe it's late at night or whatever. We don't have rope. It's like, okay, can we follow it? See if we can find an easy place to climb to get down. And the answer would be, yeah, they can right here. But there probably will be something here, but that's something they could do. But it makes their choice kind of meaningful, and it gives them something to think about where they're going to kind of get to pick their poison. Yes, they can get down the escarpment, but it's a little bit dodgy and dangerous. Yes, they could follow the escarpment, but that has its own issues. So that's kind of the point. But I'm in terms of as an adventure, right? If this was my home game, I think I wouldn't be caring about a lot about this. I would just have some, like, okay, I'm gonna roll a die. Oh, you got tools, you get down, whatever you don't. Okay, I'm gonna roll, you take so such and such damage. Oh, you died, oh well, or whatever, right? I wouldn't be a big deal. But this is kind of part of that sort of adventure crafting as sort of a product kind of adventure, versus just for my own game where I would just play it loosey goosey and say, oh yeah, there's an escarpment, and I'll figure out, if you ever get there, then I'll figure it out when I get there. Well, I got to give somebody a tool in advance. I'm already now starting to rethink whether I even need this much, and whether I should just say, hey, if they have tools, they can get down. It takes extra time. If they don't, maybe roll to see how much damage they take going down, and just even get rid of that complexity. You know, but I'll leave this here for now. I'll have to revisit it. Okay, so I've got that part. Okay, 1 hex per turn. I think, let's see. Yes. If the party attempts to move down off trail, it takes an additional expedition turn of time. The low river, is that where Shorty goes wearing a Reeboks with the straps? You got it. Yep. Getting low, low. My daughter loves that song, and she's 10 now, and she does not understand it at all lyrically, which I'm grateful for, but she does. Uh, I was actually, where it came from is, I mean, names are so goofy. I was thinking of the Po River, and I was also thinking of the Loire Valley. So Po, Loire. I could have gone with Poir, but I don't like the way that sounds. So I just went with Po. That's true. What's not love? That's true. Yeah, maybe this would be like what Apple Bottom Town over there or something. Yeah. No, it is a good tune. Well, Brian says shouldn't be climbing shouldn't be an entire session. And well, it wouldn't be in a session. I mean, you're spending time in the game, Brian Smith. But if you're spending your whole session staring at that cliff, then something's going wrong. I imagine this will not be a hard. I mean, really, well, it comes down to a couple things. There will be supplies that could be used for climbing that that'll be in here if they get it. If they're But it takes a little bit of forward thinking, I guess, or just opportunism to grab all the stuff in case. But it's kind of fun if they do end up getting like ropes and stuff, then they could just tie off some rope and shimmy down. Fairly, I mean, it would take some time still, which is why I'm just saying it just takes another turn of time. But this stuff should not take, in meta terms, very long to figure out. You just kind of make a choice. And as the GM in this situation, you pretty much just lay out like, okay, here are the dangers, right? The dangers are if you fall, you could hurt your, that it's rough and tumble and steep, and it's got lots of jutting rocks. And some of the things you can't see because of the shrubs and things that it hides some of the drops and other pointy bits. So here's what's going to happen, kind of thing. Thieves, you can go, for free. Thieves, you're good. Everyone else, you're gonna have to do it. They sell boots with the fur at the climbing supply store. Yeah, at the winter supply, the for the winter provisions, you got the boots with the fur. Um, Apple Bottom Downs, nice. The Guar River. Didn't somebody from Guar die recent? Not even recently, a couple years ago. Poor lot for Guar. I never really followed them, but I always appreciated those odd moments when they show up on MTV or something. I always felt them that they were sort of aspirational. Like maybe one day I'll get into Guar. It never happened, but I appreciated what they were trying what they were trying to do. Even if I never personally caught on. Though I maybe it's something that the a lot, I kind of have a mixed I sort of have a mixed feelings on Spotify and things because I was a kid in particular, as an adult too, but as a kid especially, listening to an album and being forced really by the technology to kind of listen to it through. I mean, you could on the tape decks, yeah, you could rewind, but oftentimes you put the tape on and you just kind of listen to it, and it's annoying if you're going to be sitting there in front of the tape player going, stop, rewind, stop, like forward. At some points, they kind of got some jumps where you could kind of jump ahead anyway, but for the most part, you just play it through. So you hear a full album. Uh, Nowadays, here like old man now in these days, everything's the song is just kind of the single, and it just seems like everything's just a bunch of singles put together. I don't even know if that's really the case from the artist perspective, but it feels like from the way you consume them perspective. But on the flip side is you get access to all this music. Now I know it seems like from the artist perspective that Spotify, much like YouTube, individual listener listening to an individual song is not is not very I mean, I know that people have talked in videos and things about how many, you can have millions of listens on some Spotify and what that actually comes down to your bottom line. And I think the answer is not very much, which is unfortunate if you're as a musician. But for me, if I was 12 again and I was trying to find Guar, I'd either have to go to a record store and go into a listening booth with a Guar album if they had a listening booth or somewhere, and then hear it, or I'd have to know somebody who had some Guar. Wow, he died in 2014. Oh my gosh, 10 years ago. Here I'm thinking it was more recent. What would my Guar stage name be? Well, let's see. The front man was Odorous Urungus. Hexus Pressus. I'm not sure. But back in the day, you'd have to you'd really need to you'd need to commit to Guar, is what I'm trying to say here. You would have to go and I guess this is really true with everything, including, gaming hobbies. You would have to commit to that. You would have to say, I have to go to this store, and maybe not every store would even have Guar, depending on where you live. I mean, I was lucky to be in cities where generally you go to a Sam Goody, Target, I'm forgetting, the Wiz or Crazy Eddie's or Tower Records, and they generally had pretty much everything. But there were certainly lots of underground places in the village, whatever you could go to. But you got to find the place that's got the Guar. Then you either have to buy the Guar yourself and tapes. Those things were not CDs and tapes back in the day. They were not cheap necessarily, especially if you're a kid. You got to go buy the thing, or you could try to find it in some kind of secondhand store. But good luck with that. Or you have to know somebody who's already into Guar that can lend you or basically dub you a tape, make you a tape of the Guar. Because if you're going to listen on the radio, and it's funny because my daughter, when we have the radio on, she still sometimes will get caught up in why can't we skip forward? Change the song. Why can't you? Can we skip? Can we skip this? Like, no, it's the radio. You just it plays. And I don't even know what radio station, if I wanted to actually listen to Guar, would actually get me Guar. So to get into a band that you didn't know before, you really kind of had to. What I'm saying is you had to put in some effort. But now it's easy. Now it's just, okay, go to Spotify, or tell your Amazon unit or your whatever Google unit to, hey, play some Guar, and then you're done. Jorge asks what music is to be found in the Low River Valley. That's a good question. I don't know. What would be the little impromptu world building here? What would be the what do we think would be what kind of instruments? Are there any funky? Because that'd be cool. I mean, this is kind of beyond the scope of the adventure, but just from I know, what are there like? Is there other than guitars, and there's a list? Is there a list? DuckDuckGo says a sack butt. Is that a real thing? Oh my gosh, 1T, but it is a real thing. What the heck is a sack butt? Tenor sackbut, a modern replica. A sackbut is an early form of trombone used during the Renaissance and Baroque eras. A sackbut has the characteristic telescopic slide of a trombone, used to vary the length of the tube to change pitch, but is distinct from later trombones by its smaller, more cylindrically proportioned bore and its less flared bell. Wow. Jorge, you were on it. Sackbut. Today I learned about the sackbut. Why didn't Guar have somebody playing the sackbut? That seems like that would have been right up their alley. What else have we got in the strings? Cretan lira sounds cool. I wouldn't want to, I'd have to change it, but it's held in the lap. What's a rebab? Oh. Rababa. Several related string instruments. I've seen those. Okay, where you play it. I gotcha. All right. That makes Guar and Flo Rida. There you go. A glittern, gittern. Gut-strung, round-backed instrument. All right, I'm getting sidetracked, but it might be cool to think about. Maybe I'll put a character. Whoops, in the maybe the Lord will have them. Oh, you know what? I need a. So this is kind of set for. So this is going to be kind of an OSR, old school, at least by default, game. So I don't have any bards as a class. However, I do need a bad guy. I need a spy. So we'll make a bard a spy. What? That heading 3, heading 2. think that's heading 2. Maybe. So we need, I'm just going to put, Bard, Cult, Spy. Yes, the minstrel still exists. Yes. What I mean is as a class. There's no Bard class, is what I'm saying. Yes, of course, there's still minstrels. So in terms of a stat block, there's no like he's a 3rd level bard. It's like, no, he's and maybe I'll call him a minstrel. I don't know, but I do need a spy. So good, that gives me an idea. And now we can pick an instrument. So we can put this to good use and pick the instrument. A guitar. That sounds too much like guitar. Hurdy-gurdy. What the heck's the hurdy? Oh, that's the hurdy-gurdy. Hand cranked rosined row-signed wheel. Tromba marina. Lute. Ooh, what is this? A large form. Oh, there's no pictures of it. Or, I mean, there's just this. Elders playing an organistrum. Oh, do you need... Looks like you might need it. Might be a 2-person instrument. What other... Ooh, what's a bombard? Family of oboes? What does that look like? Huh. Which one's the bombard? The bombard is a contemporary family of oboes widely used to play traditional Breton music. I see. Word is considered emblematic of bombard players known as a talabarder. Okay, but I'd like to know a little bit. Classical oboe. Is that a... Oh, that's a... Okay, so it's not the... There were 2 guys in that picture, and one of them looked like they were... Oh, that's actually looks like bagpipes. I mean, talking about this one. This guy looks like he's blowing at some kind of bagpipey thing. That looks like is the bombard. I don't know. I like the name, but I don't know. Something... Whoa, the Buisign or the anaphil, straight medieval trumpet. Okay, that's a little bit boring. Crumhorn, double reed. I like the name more than I like the thing itself. Flageolet, another woodwind. These woodwinds are not that interesting to me. The sackbut. What's the shawm? Conical board, double woodwind. That's another. These woodwinds, I like the names, but I don't love them. Percussion. A bumbulum. Oh, a letter? What is it? Following lands, which formerly were held of Roland the... Was that the farter? Is that what he's saying? hold your horses. Hold on. Roland the farter. Jorge loves this Florida Guar mashup. Roland the farter, known in contemporary records as Roland le Farter, Rolandus le Farter, Rolandus le Fetus, or Petus? Where's my glasses at? Petus, or Roland le Petour, was a medieval flatulist. What? A medieval flatulist? I guess so. Oh, that's good. All right, the following lands. Oh, I see. Okay, hold on. The word bombulum was probably derived from the same root as bombolios. So what is it supposed to be? A bombulum or bombulum was a musical instrument described in an apocryphal letter, and illustrated in a series of illuminated manuscripts in the 10th to 11th centuries, together with other instruments described in the same letter. These are the... Okay, that's fine. In the Cotton manuscript, the instrument consists of an angular frame from which depends by a chain a rectangular metal plate having 12 bent arms attached in 2 rows of 3 on each side, one above the other. The arms appear to terminate in small rectangular bells or plates, and it is supposed that the standard frame was intended to be shaken like a sistrum in order to set the bells jangling. Le Petoman was a 20th century flatulist. Well, that man deserves our respect. All right, was there some images for what this is supposed to be? I want the instrument. I don't know. Oh wait, here maybe. They're saying it made fart noises. Is that what they're saying? It says like it's got bells. The fistula Hieronymy. General on the same set of metal arms, the same number of bent pipes, conical bore. Verdung explains that the stand resembling the draftsman's square represents the Holy Cross. All right, that's fine. That's fine. There's no evidence of what the actual existence of such an instrument during the Middle Ages, with the exception of the series of fanciful pictures. And then, according to one source, it might sound like farting. The cuica makes fart noises. Jorge, you know entirely too much about instruments that make fart noises. It seems. All right. What is there? One of these that seems. Can I get? If no one's made an artist rendering or anything of this tool. No one. Euler. Bonanza. I don't know what the heck that's supposed to be. No, apparently there's not. Magnus think of Peter Griffin and Michael Moore farting out dueling banjos in that one episode of Family Guy. I mean, hey, I guess it could be done. A timbrel. What's a timbrel? Oh, it's a tambourine. Basically. That's no fun. A nakers. All right, let me look up this cuica. I gotta look it up. Musical instrument. All right. Oh, it's basically a drum. Brazilian friction drum with large pitch range. Cuica is Portuguese for the gray four-eyed opossum, which is known for its high-pitched cry. It's frequently used in carnivals. Oh, okay. But it's kind of boring. I mean, it might make cool sounds. I'm not. Can I play that? Well, no one can possibly get me a black mark, right? This isn't a YouTube sound. It's all right. Here we go. I don't know how the volume's going to be. Hey, Mikey. Let's see how this sounds. I kind of dig the sound. Jorge says you don't hit the top of the drum, you rub the sticks inside it, and it makes this weird farty noises. Huh. I don't know if that sound came through because it wasn't even that loud on my headphones, but interesting. Fiddle, guitar, they all just sound like, I don't know. Where is there something? I just want something. I don't know what I want. What's a gem's horn? Ocarina from the horn of the chamois, goat, or other suitable animal. Gem's horn receives its name from the German language, which gem's horn means chamois horn or chamois horn. According to an etymologist, the form could have prehistoric origins and come from the Proto-Germanic gameta. I don't even know how to pronounce that. Gameta Shurna N Gom Edo Kurnam. Okay. Gam's horn, indicating a specific wind instrument crafted by the horns of ungulated animals and different from a hunting horn or signaling horn. I did say goat. Interesting. You want to hear? I don't know if it's supposed to be Gem's horn or Gem's horn, but let's give it a quick listen, and then I think I gotta call it a day. All right. I kind of like a pan flute. A good pan flute. Syrinx. Pan pipes. Maybe I could do the Gems horn or Gems horn. Gems horn. It seems like it should be a hard G. Gems horn. I'll give him a Gems horn. Just gonna make a note. Plays the Gems horn. Or let's see, what other names? It said there's some other names, right? Maybe goat horn. Maybe I could just call it the goat horn. Yeah, it's a German word, probably be a hard G. Yeah, I agree. So maybe I'll call it a goat's horn. So that may make sure to get the Gram id krenam. Gram ido krenam. Or hranam. I don't know. I don't know how to read the etymology stuff. Okay. He's gonna be the cult spy. So he plays this. He is in the retinue of the Lord, the local noble. Maybe it's magical. Magical? Like the idea, maybe it's magical. Might makes him a better. Because he's going to probably be the antagonist, at least down the line, depending, of course, on what the party does. All right. Well, I gotta figure out. Well, I gotta do the wandering creature still. Got another thing here. I might ditch this. I like having little tables, but I might just ditch it and just have them roll some kind of check. Not a check. Sorry. Um, I don't know. I gotta think about it more. Oh, what if the goat horn comes from the goat head of a chimera? Oh, you are full of wisdom. Character from the horn of a chimera's goat head. Yep, noted. Got it. Well, you gotta keep coming up, Horga, because you've got maybe what's hold on. Let's see something here. So let me before we go, because I gotta look. Are there names for the different heads? Chimera or chimera was a monstrous fire-breathing hybrid creature, composed of different animal parts. Lion, head of a goat. Term chimera. Yeah, I got that. According to Hesiod. Okay. Description. She was of divine stock, not of men. In the forepart, a lion; in the hinder, a serpent; and in the midst, a goat. In the midst, breathing forth in terrible wise the might of blazing fire. Killed by Bellerophon. So maybe what is goat in? I know this is not going to get me. Is it going to even something I can read? No. Fawn. Let me see something. Maybe. Where's my phone? Hold on a minute. I really like the idea of the chimeric goat head. That makes me want to. I want to see. What does perplexity say? What is the ancient Greek word for goats? If this doesn't work, I might go to Edom Online. Well, I can do it. Let's do two things at once because looking at my phone is not particularly riveting for folks who can't see my phone. Goat. Goat, Old English gat. Okay, so that's how you get to like she goat from Proto-Germanic gato, get, geit, gyed, geet, guys, geis, gates, guido, young goat. Word for male goat was bucka or gatbucka. Like a buck, I'm guessing. Goat in Greek is gita. Okay. I'm trying to see what I like better. So it's for he goat and she goat. Get someone's goat. All right. So what about horn? I forget what's horn. I think horn is one of those that doesn't really change much. It's like horn and corn. So do I like better? I want to that's horn. I want to give it. So what I want to do is because especially get someone's goat. My sound cut out? Really? No. Did it really? It's showing up on my end. Let me know. Anyone else having? Did I? It's back. Okay. Cool. Well, I'm going to be signing off in a minute anyway, but I'm glad that it's not super. Hey, Terrence, you're in. You're coming in right as I'm heading out. All right, cool. So the Gat's horn, which is magical, crafted from the horn of a chimera's goat head. So that means, well, let's look at. So actually, before I go, so hold on a minute. We got one more thing. So I got to come up with something. This got to have some abilities, right? No, not you. I wanted that to be. All right. So its abilities are once per day. Um, cone of what did they say in the might of blazing fire? Breathing forth in terrible wise the might of blazing fire. What plain text? No. Yep. As dragon's breath. Dragon's breath. Well, poop. When played as an instrument, +2 to reaction rolls with monsters. Against, towards. Yeah, I'm not necessarily 3 to 24 is what was that? 3d8? I'm not gonna. I don't. I'm not super concerned on the actual damage part. I mean, if we want to look at reference, I would probably use basic or expert. I don't know if they have a chimera in it. Let me see if they do, just for giggles. But I'm okay just doing my own damage. It doesn't have to be exactly what they have, but I'll check it just to see, just out of curiosity, really. Chimera in BX does. Oh, look at that! Bum bum bum. In BX, it actually does a 50-foot long cone with a 3 to 18 points of damage, aka 3d6. So nailed it. No, it's in the expert book. Horga, you got to look in expert. It's in the expert book. I don't know if Dragon's Breath. I'll give it the 50-foot cone, 3d6 damage. All right. So yeah, I definitely got to call it quits, but we did some good work. You know, as usual, part of it's kind of reviewing what's already here, but then part of it is also delving in. And yeah, I got to flesh this guy out some more, but now he's got a magic instrument. And then we figured out a couple of things. I'm still figuring out what to do with the cliffside, but we'll figure that out. Thanks so much, everybody, hanging out. We will continue on, and yeah, I can't forget the boots with the fur or mashups of Guar and Flo Rida. Thanks, Horga. You were instrumental, literally and figuratively, today, as well as everyone else who was hanging out. Hopefully see you guys all tomorrow. But if not, have the great rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listen to this. Game on, everybody. Talk to you later. Bye now.